Ah, the PPSH-41, also known as the Papa-Shah, also known as one of the sexiest submachine guns ever created. It operates pretty similarly to any other open-bolt submachine gun direct blowback out there, but it is distinctly Russian in its look, making it the darling child for movies, TV shows, video games, and LARPers. It's chambered in the Boomer 5.7, I mean 7.62 by 25 Tokarev, and it has a ridiculously high cyclic rate of 1,000 rounds per minute. Oh yeah, and I love it. What is up, you sexy YouTube mother lovers? My name is Brandon Herrera, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the PPSH-41 on the good old-fashioned whiteboard of knowledge. Now, to actually understand how the PPSH-41 works, we have to understand its operating system. It's an open bolt, direct blowback mechanism. What does that mean? Get out of the way, RPK, this isn't about you. So to tackle this, we're going to have to go back to elementary school. No, we're not going to an elementary school with the PPSH-41. Can we do that again? So we're going to tackle this with some elementary school physics. So for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're sending this 7.62 by 25 millimeter bullet through the barrel at 1,500 feet per second, you're also sending that equal amount of force backward toward the bolt. On say like a bolt action rifle, that force backwards is absorbed by the locking lugs. You know, when you put the bolt into battery and you slam it home, it's locking, and so those lugs take the brunt of the recoil, and that backward energy is then transferred into felt recoil from the shooter. Not the case on a direct blowback. So why doesn't the bolt on a direct blowback become a bullet of its own? So the answer is back to physics. So while this bullet may be screaming out of the barrel at 1,500 feet per second, this bolt probably weighs around 75 times as much as that bullet does. So the energy takes the path of least resistance. When that explosion goes off and that gunpowder burns, it's a hell of a lot easier to push that tiny bullet through the barrel than it is to push this massive weight backward toward the shooter at 1,500 feet per second as well. So much to the pleasure of the shooter, I'm sure, that way that the cartridge and the bolt don't immediately just yeet themselves backward toward the shooter and end up ending him in a graphic Tarantino-esque fashion.
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
As for how that operates in the weapon itself, when the bolt moves forward, it slam fires around here, and it pushes this bolt right here backward. Again, not at that same 1,500 feet per second, but it's still moving relatively quickly. But it is slowed and stopped by a recoil spring that is tethered to the back. It's basically a pipe. That's why they call these pipe submachine guns. So this is just a tube that contains that bolt and traps it so that it's traveling straight rearward, where it's slowed down and pushed back forward by a recoil spring. So while that may be slightly oversimplified, that is the basic principle of direct blowback. All right, so this is my rushed artist rendering of a PPSH-41. I know it's beautiful. Be sure to leave your comments about how great of a whiteboard artist I am. I'm sure you will, just like last time. So chamber roughly is about here. This is where the barrel is. Barrel protrudes, of course, through you can see it through the little vent holes there. It's just a basic 7.62 by 25 or 9 millimeter barrel if you're a sadist like I am. I just like shooting cheap ammo through machine guns, but Barrel goes to right here. You don't have to leave room for locking lugs because obviously there aren't any. So this is where your barrel ends. Your chamber is right about here. And the bolt travels through this space here. This is where your bolt really kind of does its operation. So the way this starts is that the bolt hangs up roughly about here, and it moves forward. And as it's moving forward, it picks up another round. So this is where this is the magazine. Again, my excellent rendering of the profile of a drum magazine. It looks just like a rectangle because that's what cylinders look like from the side. This is terrible. Anyway, your round is sitting roughly at the top of this drum, right up like this, ready to be picked up. Bolt goes forward and it basically slam fires this thing as soon as it gets into the chamber. So it loads up and into the chamber. Bolt comes in behind it. The firing pin on the PPSH-41 is fixed. So as soon as it chambers that thing and gets the extractor up over it, it fires immediately. The primer is contacted by the firing pin and sends this flying back. Of course, the bullet goes speeding out the front and into your generic enemy of choice, as the bolt then from this position moves backward. And as it goes backward, The extractor, which is just a little metal clip that hangs over on the rim of the cartridge, the little rim, if you've ever seen, I guess, breaking it really down. Let me actually find a bullet real quick. Got some PPSH ammo over here. I legitimately forgot I have like 10,000 rounds of 7.62 by 25 Tokarev sitting over there in the corner. It's a small flex. So this part here at the end of the casing is where the extractor clips on over it and pulls this casing out of the chamber after it was fired. So glad I ripped into an ammo box for that. So that extractor catches the case, pulls it out of the chamber, it follows the bolt as it's traveling rearward, except there's an ejector, which is a little piece of steel that's sitting there waiting for that casing. And what it does is it catches that casing from the bottom. There's a little groove in the bottom of the bolt. It catches that casing and kicks it out the side so that the bolt is fresh and ready for a new round to be picked up. That recoil spring here goes all the way to the rear, slows the bolt as it's moving rearward. It hits the back and it pushes it back forward. As long as the trigger is depressed, pushes the bolt back forward where it can pick up another round, load it into the chamber, fire that round, and rinse and repeat until you are either out of ammo or you have officially eliminated all the Nazis in your area and you can safely return back home to Babushka. Now, if you thought that was simple so far, congratulations, you're paying attention. But the trigger is really the beautiful part. This is where things get unbelievably simple. For that, I'm going to introduce you guys to Katya, which is part of my parts kit for a PPSH-41. This is going to be a beautiful, beautiful piece. She is going to eat her Wheaties and grow up to be one of the new shop machine guns. So I am very much looking forward to that as soon as I can find time to do that. I've had this kit for a very long time. But yes, this is actually an original PPSH-41 parts kit, and it has the original trigger in it. So one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of semi-auto PPSH-41s floating around is because the trigger system is meant for an open bolt. And an open bolt, even if it's semi-auto, according to the ATF, that's a machine gun. Whatever. But the trigger system is so unbelievably simple, and it only works this way in full auto. So check this out. The trigger, of course, when you pull it, allows the bolt to move forward. All it is, if you look on the inside here, is it is just a little lever that when you pull the trigger, it gets out of the way. That's all it does. When you're pulling the trigger, you're just moving that piece of steel out of the way of stopping the bolt. No crazy intricate trigger systems, no strikers, nothing. It's a fixed firing pin. And it'll go until you let your finger off the trigger. And if you pull it, it just goes back and forth until you either run out of ammo or you take your finger off the trigger. It's that simple. So in reality, if you think about it, the trigger mechanism on the PPSH, much like a lot of the other pipe gun submachine guns that are direct blowback, is basically the opposite of a trigger. It stops the gun from working. Realistically, all you're doing by pulling the trigger is getting it the fuck out of the way. So in theory, if this thing had no trigger on it and that was not there, if you loaded up a drum magazine, pulled this thing back, and just let her go, you would just sit there and ride the lightning until that sucker was out of ammo or jammed, which means you would ride the lightning until that sucker was out of ammo. And that right there is why the pipe style submachine guns are so unbelievably simple. All this is, realistically, if you take out the flare and some of the stampings and kind of crazy geometry that they do sometimes, for God knows why. All this is a steel pipe with another steel pipe as a barrel attached to it, with a piece of round stock, a spring, a fixed firing pin, which literally could just be a welded little tit on the front of that steel round stock, and a little extractor with a tiny spring on it, and a magazine. That's it. These things are so simple. There's a reason we developed these earlier than we developed the assault rifle. The pipe style submachine guns, the Stens, the MP18, the MP28, all that stuff came around very, very early because this stuff is very, very simple for firearm design, especially the blowback actions. There's a lot of cool history behind this stuff. It's really neat, but it just shows how simple a lot of this stuff is to make. It's not rocket science. So I guess after this video, politicians are gonna have to go out and immediately ban Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, all that stuff ASAP. Plumbing supplies, screws, pipes, lathes, mills, steel, ban steel. That's a good, damn, 3D printers. Okay, we'll come back to that one, but back to the PPSH. So now let me address some dumb shit. Because of some of my more eccentric AK builds, AK-50, AK-224, a bunch of other just stuff like that we've been working on, I get a lot of build suggestions, and I think it's really cool. I think it's cool that you guys get engaged and you have an interest in seeing new stuff be made, and especially us making new stuff. I think it's really awesome. However, I get a lot of suggestions that kind of show to me that you guys don't exactly know how this stuff works, which is fine. I mean, I've been there, trust me. Like, there's varying levels of understanding complexities of firearm design, but I get suggestions like PPSH-40 when, like 50 BMG PPSH, or PPSH in 7.62x39 that takes AK mags. No. So pretty much any rifle round needs to lock. It needs lockup. You cannot do direct blowback like this with a high pressure round like a 50 BMG. It's really not a good idea, guys. And of course the internet rushes to go find a million exemptions, crazy one-off designs. So pretty much with any sort of rifle round like the 7.62x39, 8mm Mauser, 5.56, 50 BMG, 30-06, on and on and on, you need some sort of lockup. They have far higher pressures and volume of pressure than pistol calibers like 9mm 7.62x25, even though that's kind of a hot one, 45 ACP, 40 cal 10mm, all that stuff. The straight well pistol cartridges, it's just very low pressure compared to things like a 30-06 or a 50 BMG. You need some sort of lockup. Like the AK has a rotating bolt design, which is why it has the gas piston. Phenomenal design, that's why it works so incredibly well. It's a long stroke gas piston that moves the bolt carrier back so that the bolt unlocks after the pressure is largely relieved. But the lockup contains most of that. Look up pictures of people using cast front trunnions on AKs and watch what happens when those lugs crack or break. It's a catastrophic failure. It's very dangerous to the shooter. Now just imagine if there were no lugs there at all and it was just a direct blowback. It's not a great day, especially not for the guy holding it. There's so many ways that you can do lockup on rifle rounds. You have the tilting bolt. You've got the rotating bolt gas-operated design like the AK and the AR-15. You've got just long recoil. You've got all sorts of crazy stuff that works for rifle rounds, but you need some sort of lockup. Hell, HK on their roller delay blowback even put a lockup system, more or less, on their MP5, which is a 9mm. Yeah, I know they're German, but still. And before I hear you say in the comments, no, you just can't put a bigger recoil spring on it. That's just, it's not really how this stuff works, but for rifle rounds, just kind of cement that up here, you need lockup. But the direct blowback system does work exceptionally well for pistol calibers, and it has worked really well for about a century now at this point. So now we kind of got that tangent out of the way. Some more features on the PPSH-41 is the magazine release, folds down, and so you can release the magazine, you put another magazine in, and fold it back up. That's kind of interesting. Iron sights on the PPSH are present. And of course you have those lovely, lovely iconic barrel vents that are stamped into the front shroud that makes up the very iconic PPSH-41 look that contrasts exceptionally well with this nice wood stock here on the rear. It's just a very industrialist meets traditional classic look, and I love it.
This is one of the few guns out there that just makes me feel violent, and I don't know why.
So all in all, it is a sweet little piece of history and one of my all-time favorite guns for little other reason than it is just cool as hell. So that was another whiteboard of knowledge video for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I like doing them. And thanks a lot to a fan who actually hooked us up with some whiteboard markers for this. I guess he was tired of seeing me fight with the whiteboard markers in the last couple of videos, and I was frankly starting to lose what little was left of my sanity. So thank you very much for that. It was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one, so thank you. But I think that's just about all I have for this video today. Thank you guys very much for watching, and keep your eyes peeled because I've got a video coming out maybe a week and a half from now that is going to be very, 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 very cool. I've been hinting at it just a little bit, and it's some serious stuff. It's gonna make some serious waves, so keep an eye out for it. Not even kidding you guys, this is gonna be some Lord of War. So I'm excited to show you guys that. I've been working on it for a little while. And as always, I will see you sexy YouTube mother lovers in the next video. Bye-bye. All right, we're good to go. Oh.